Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Perks and Paving. We had a great episode today. We had some childhood friends of Paige coming to the studio with us, Lukas and Brittany Baker, who own the Baker Consulting Services, Inc., locally here in Butler. They talked about their journey from transitioning careers from both healthcare and education to now owning a business. We had an awesome conversation. What was your favorite part of today's episode?
I just loved connecting with someone who also went through something similar to us. I'm sure it's a little bit different working for having your own company, but relating to someone who, has done something similar to us, making that significant career jump. It was a really nice conversation and, love to get their perspective on it and hear their inspiring story. I mean, how inspiring for him to, take a leap of faith and leave the education industry and jump into having his own health insurance agent.
We really appreciated their time, and it's an awesome episode. You guys should really check it out. And as always, you can find us on the One Team Media channel on YouTube as well. Appreciate you guys. Let's go to the episode. So before we dive into your guys' story, we share a lot of similarities in career paths. But before we get into that, we kind of wanted to circle back and share with the audience how you guys all know each other. So
Brittany and I went to kindergarten together. We're not sure if Lukas was there or not.
Yeah. Maybe not with the same teacher.
Yeah. I feel like you would remember if you
always
had
Deer Lakes, though.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we went back to kindergarten together, and then I went to Deer Lakes in middle school, and obviously you guys were still there, so we went to middle school, and high school together. So, yeah, so that's how we know each other, and we also all swam together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Not willingly. I only swam just to keep in shape for volleyball at the time, so it was torture.
Yeah, I did the same thing
since birth.
I did the same thing for track, but yeah, Brittany is like an absolute killer swimmer.
What was your stroke? What's your go-to?
I like distance.
Okay.
So the 500 that nobody ever wanted to swim. So.
Did you swim in college?
No, at Slippery Rock they actually got rid of their club or something, or not the club, but their whatever, right before we graduated. So I just did their recreational.
Okay,
yeah.
That's nice though that you still got to keep up with it. I mean, you were amazing. I remember, you seriously. I mean, I was awful. I remember we had to do. I don't know if you remember, but it was a very clear memory of mine. When the coach our senior year, he put me in the butterfly, my first event after he didn't have me train for butterfly at all. I just did freestyle practice. And then he was like, oh yeah, Paige, first meet you're doing butterfly. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Sorry. And he's like, oh, my daughter will teach you. Remember he had the little daughter?
Oh, yes.
And he literally made me stay after practice and had his 6-year-old daughter teach me how to do fly. So
no, that's probably true. That's funny. I think I do sort of remember you staying afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't. Maybe she just is really into swimming now. And she wants,
no.
Didn't want to die.
No. And then another thing that sticks out in my head. Do you guys remember when we had to do the 100 laps on New Year's Day?
Yes, that is a vivid memory.
Maybe I blocked it out.
Okay.
It's something that I wanted to block out.
100 100s or something. And
yeah, it was a fundraiser of some sort, I believe.
Oh.
Ringing a bell a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah, it was hard for me. It was probably easy peasy for you because you're a rock star. But yeah, it was tough. But yeah, a little bit of background about our show since this is your first podcast, right? First of all.
Yes.
Yeah, we're podcast rookies.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you guys for coming. I know.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I know sometimes people are a little hesitant to come on, so I'm glad that you guys were willing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. But a little bit of background about our show is, we love to have people on that have had, career shifts and kind of to tell the story of why people are making career shifts and how, those type of shifts can, make for a better life for, yourselves and your families. And, it's hard to go through those changes. And, obviously we've gone through a pretty significant career change to come here and, just trying to inspire people to, go out of their comfort zones and do the same if they're not feeling fulfilled. So let's start into so you went to school for physical therapy.
Yep.
And you went to school for teaching.
Mm-hmm.
You guys both went to Slippery Rock, correct?
No, I went to Penn State.
Okay.
Yeah, for secondary education. So-
Okay.
And then my focus was English and communications.
Okay. Very
So
nice.
we dated for a little while at a distance, and yeah, she went to Slippery Rock.
And recap this for me too. Were you guys dating in high school?
No.
Okay.
No.
After high
That's kind of
school.
the funny
that-
part, yeah.
okay. That's interesting too. I do not remember them
No.
dating in high school. Okay. So I mean we don't have to go into like how that rekindled, but I want to know later. You guys can tell me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you guys you do your 4-year degrees. You guys are dating pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, pretty much,
Sophomore
yeah.
year by the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you get into physical therapy school at Nova Southeastern, correct?
Yep.
But that was a hybrid program.
Yes, it was our hybrid program.
So talk us through that, because I don't have much, like, even, I feel like that's not really super common. Even
I think it's more
common now.
because the
I'm like
pandemic.
very far removed from all of that, obviously, at this
Yeah.
point. So, but yeah, tell us about that experience and how it was for you, and what a hybrid role through PT school looks like.
Yeah. So we always, I feel like, felt like we were going to move anyway. So I feel like most of my cohort lived actually out of the state of Florida.
Okay.
And there was just a few of us that lived in Florida or even like in Tampa. But hybrid was like 3 weeks of like lectures and stuff. And then for a long weekend, you would do like the coursework, you would do all the labs and stuff like that.
Okay.
And get tested. So it was like a cram session of like 4 days of like pure madness.
Yeah.
And then you would go home and then do all the lectures and stuff like that.
Okay. And you were
so-
going to Fort Lauderdale's campus, or there was
No,
the
it was a
Tampa branch?
Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a Tampa branch.
Gotcha.
And then you could work and be more flexible and stuff like that. So there was
Nice.
more of like I want to say like older people, but like later 20s
Yeah.
or people with families. So it was a little bit more flexible for that for
Very
them.
nice.
So
Very nice.
I worked most of the time and then.
And how many years was the
So
program?
that was 4 years. I
Okay.
think our program changed a little bit
Okay.
to make it more condensed because 4 years is so long.
It is
So,
long.
They
I
were
think
getting rid of stuff. It was just like slowed down a bit
Yeah,
because people
that's-
were working.
That's nice though that you know there's that opportunity to go that path, because
Yeah.
3 years is, I feel like sometimes a lot. I mean, there definitely was an opportunity to work that much. I mean, I worked
Yeah.
a little bit, but
Mhm.
not a ton. So I feel like that would have been a nice
Yeah.
alternative. I think Angel, she's completely online for her program. She does the same sort of thing, like
Immersions. and stuff like
immersions
that.
is what they call them, I think.
Oh, okay.
So she'll go, I don't know, once a quarter maybe or something, and
Oh, that's
does
wild.
something of that. I mean, I can't comment too much. I'm not in it,
Yeah,
but
no, that's fine.
but yeah, something of that nature. And her program's 2 years though, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. That seems like it would be jam packed.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
So
Yeah.
You have
how
to be
long?
really motivated.
Yeah. How long were you practicing before you decided to work with your husband?
How long did you work
5
at
years?
Select? And then
Well, I guess 5 years.
Okay.
18 to 23. Is that 5 years?
Yeah.
5 years.
Sure.
So
Which is so crazy. I mean, we talked a little bit about this before the podcast started, but like our lives have been like so similar as far as like we both ended up in Florida for a period of time,
Yep.
and then we both all three of us worked at Select Physical Therapy,
Yep.
and we actually reconnected at a course in Tampa, like coincidentally.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I said 2020, but I think it was actually probably 2019 because it wasn't
it
during
was before
COVID.
that.
Yeah, it wasn't during COVID. Yeah.
But
it was,
Vestibular course with Dr. Melissa Bloom.
oh yeah, she was the
you remember?
I do.
she was awesome.
She's great.
Yeah.
Shout
she
out
was
to
awesome.
Melissa Bloom.
Did you practice vestibular therapy at all? No.
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 No, I took the course because I forgot that I needed like in-person CEUs.
Yeah.
So I took the first course that was like in person, closest to me. That's like offered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't have a passion for this at all. I don't want to treat this. I treated one patient,
Okay.
and I think he got better. I don't even know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But
I know you were more into it, I think, or
Yeah,
like you guys
we-
actually
She-
treated
we're-
that.
she was better than I was, but she was in our clinic in Fort Lauderdale. We saw the majority of the vestibular patients, or I mean, we saw them all the vestibular patients.
I
Yeah.
would say that when we left there, probably about, I don't know, 70%, I don't know, maybe 60% of my caseload was vestibular. I mean, we had a lot of
Yeah.
vestibular patients at that point.
Oh,
Mhm.
well,
We
that
were
makes
like-
sense then.
I don't know. They must have like put on broadcast that we worked at
You
that
were
clinic
in.
and treated it, so like everyone would just come. So, but we enjoyed it. It was a nice change of pace. But you
Yeah.
had some specialties that you worked
Yeah.
in as well, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about those.
So I did a clinical rotation in pelvic floor and loved it.
Yeah.
And I told my boss in Florida, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do ortho, by the way. I have like a true passion for this. And he's
Yeah.
like, well, do ortho for a year so you like get bearings of being a new PT and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I think like a month before I told him we were leaving, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do pelvic and I'm just going to do it myself. Like, don't worry about me. I'll still be here. I just need an office.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, sure. Whatever you want to do. Great. And then like a month later, I was like, we're moving back to Pennsylvania. So coming back up here, I took it was like women's health, men's rehab. So it was
Yeah.
pelvic floor and lymphedema.
Okay.
So yeah,
And where did you work when you guys moved back?
UPMC.
Okay.
Okay.
Very nice.
Yep. So worked there for, I guess, 3 years.
3 years. I'd
Yeah.
say,
Okay.
outpatient.
So you treated from, you said 18 to 23. So when did
Mhm.
you start to realize, or when did it start becoming more of a thought in your head of like, this isn't what I want to do, or I can be happy doing someone else? Kind of walk through when you started to come across that idea and act
Yeah,
on it a little bit more.
So we were, I guess, whenever I don't even know if it was whenever I was pregnant or when I had Theo.
I mean, it was between those two times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I was on maternity leave, and it was like the craziest time of the year, we had this running joke. Like I was in the living room with the baby. He was like in like his office, and I was like, "Project Bring Mom Home," and like it was a
Just as
joke.
a joke.
It was just a joke at the time. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, maybe I want to be a PT all the time. I didn't know
Yeah.
what I wanted to do at that point.
Yeah.
And I,
Would you agree though that it's hard? I mean, all of us decided what we wanted to do for them. I mean, I don't know if you knew right away when you got into college, but I mean, quickly after, I'm sure you decided to get on that pre-PT route. But I mean, how do you know when you're 18, 19 years old what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
I mean, you can have thoughts, but like, I don't know. I just feel like that's hard to know for the next, until we're 60 some, what we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Your interests change, life changes. So,
yep.
but yeah, so.
So I feel like whenever that happened and like going back, I was a wreck. And I was like, all right, we need to like change something.
Yeah.
Our life is very different now.
Yeah.
So yeah, Theodore was born in October, and then she went back full time in January. We're like, all right, we're doing this. You're gonna go back full time, and I'm gonna be like I'll work from home as much as I can and be with Theo, and then after January was up, I think you were having other thoughts. Basically.
Yeah. It was like part-time, and then
She was getting home at like 6 or 7 p.m. and it was like,
I was
Theo.
so drained. Like I loved that I loved what I was doing
Yeah.
in PT, and it was so fulfilling, but like there are heavy topics that we were talking about, and I was just bringing that home, and
Yeah.
I'm like, he's a baby, and I'm like drained, and I have a
Yeah.
like here's
need-
a shell of a mom. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It
Yeah.
just
That makes total sense. And I
Yeah.
don't even have a child yet. And I feel like I still felt that way. So I totally get it. But yeah, so you were working as a teacher while she was in PT school, correct? In Florida. So we'll rewind a little bit. So tell us a little bit about that, what you were doing and how you transitioned into your new career.
Yeah. So it was actually a lot easier to get a teaching job in the South than it is in Pennsylvania, just the number of teachers here. But yeah, so when she got accepted there, I started applying for jobs in the summer to get a position in Florida, and then got accepted to a charter school in Newport Richey
Okay.
and around the Tampa area.
Yep.
And I taught there for a good 4 or 5 years. 6th through 12th. The only grade I hadn't taught by the time I was done was 7th. And then I did a year. I got the opportunity to do a year abroad in China where I had lived and taught for a year, and blessed enough to be in a relationship with her where we were distanced at the time, so it was difficult. 12 hours in difference, but
Wow.
It was an incredible experience, and I love the fact that I was able to travel and teach.
Yeah.
So it was actually because of that year in China, I came back, and I was working more as like a professor when I was teaching in China, and so I would have 13-hour weeks, 15-hour weeks, 19-hour weeks, and just come in for the courses and be able to leave. And when I got back to the States, everyone's familiar with the U.S. not paying teachers that much, and so 32, 27 after taxes, working 50 plus hours because I'm teaching high schoolers who are SATs, ACTs, and it's a lot of time. And I was like, how can I get my time back where I was kind of able to enjoy a little bit more of like life rather than just work when I was in China. And so I used to be a little bit embarrassed by it, but I'm not ashamed anymore. I actually, as a teacher, we're always looking for side incomes.
Yeah.
And in Florida, I came across a networking arm that did Amway products. And I was in Amway for a good year and a half. And that got me out of my comfort zone. It taught me about like passive income for one, which I never knew was a thing.
Yeah.
It's funny, I think as a teacher, we don't educate our kids about finances at all.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting concept. And while Amway wasn't my thing, in the end, I was like, okay, what other industries have that same kind of residual concept?
Yeah.
And I don't have to go back to college and go into debt. And that's when, I was like, I think I'm going to consider insurance.
Yeah.
Why health and life? Really, the only reason is because it was 60 hours instead of a 200-hour course.
Yeah.
So I wasn't doing home and auto, and that's really the only reason. So I got into it I changed my career and got into insurance just for the possibility, the potential to have like more time in the future with a family I hadn't had yet.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's how I got into the insurance and that's how I bridge the gap. Some people are like teaching to insurance, right?
Yeah.
So my first 3 months were in a captive agency. What that means is I could only sell certain products.
Okay.
I was just like, I don't have any sales experience. I want to get in, I want to get on the ground and just learn.
Yeah.
They had given me a contract my whole goal was to become independent because I was like, how do I tie teaching to insurance and not feel like I have to sell to people?
Right.
And the whole independent agent came across, and I was like, I like the concept of that, having every carrier so that when someone comes to me, it's just a situation.
Okay.
I'm listening, and we're going to place you doctors, meds, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's where I really found the passion because I was able to link it to like, oh, I'm still an educator, but it's just in insurance and health insurance.
Right.
And then now it's been almost 5 years, and now I've really seen like, I think there should be more educators or at least people with that mentality for insurance as an advisor rather than a salesperson. So that's how we've become pretty successful is because we don't approach it from a sales perspective.
That's awesome. I love that.
How long have you guys been working together now in the business?
Oh, you left for real in June?
Yeah, so
of
like
last year?
6-ish months.
So yeah, not quite. Yeah, 6 or 7 months.
Very nice.
And
And,
then- you go,
I was
you
going to say, so for viewers, what's the name of your health insurance agency?
Yeah, Baker Consulting Services.
Okay.
Mhm.
And who is your prime client if someone wants to utilize you guys for your services?
I do a lot of we do a lot of individual and family.
Okay.
So in Pennsylvania particularly, we have Penny, the marketplace.
Okay.
And so for anyone who's a self-employed business owner who has to have their own insurance, maybe who has a group provider that doesn't give them benefits, all those people are niche clients of mine that I can help.
Okay.
And then also I've really found a passion for helping early retirees. So people who are, not 65, but they don't want to keep working, they're ready to stop, and they don't know how to bridge that gap to Medicare.
Yeah.
Because they're so used to an employer plan.
Yeah.
So those are the most common situations, and so I help them into a plan to bridge them to Medicare, and then I do Medicare as well. So anybody with Medicare needs, and then some people will ask me, "What do you do? Group benefits?"
Yeah.
And my focus over the last 5 years has been small business owners,
Okay.
and so my objective is really those under 10. So
Nice.
I do write group benefits, but I also find solutions that are outside the box for those employers too.
Yeah.
So.
And what specifically is your role with the company? Do you guys do the same things? Do you guys have like divide and conquer, or do you have a completely different role?
Yeah,
I call her the chief administrative officer.
Okay.
Mhm.
I love that.
sounds very official.
Yeah.
I guess I do more of like, I want to say like more of like the background stuff of like keeping things.
Processes, procedures,
Yeah.
I mean, things that keep the business running and that
Yeah,
like I can only
very
spend
important.
an hour on before my brain,
Yeah.
we're all geared towards different things. She just is.
I don't know how he did it before I came along. like there's so many ins and outs,
Yeah.
and like I don't know how he was doing all of this stuff beforehand,
Yeah.
and like
You guys know we wear so many hats when we own our own business.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have some hats given to
Yeah.
her.
for
So
sure.
how did it come about? Were you on having you doing PT and said, hey, can I come work with you? Or did you recognize and say, hey, like, well, why don't we try this out? Like, how did it come where let's work together in this new business? How'd that unfold?
Yeah, I think back to that. So it was the month after full time she came back, and we were just really, both of her and I were noticing like just drained from patience, and she just gives herself. I think that she's like 100% an empath in my opinion. So, she tries to help everybody, and those people telling her stories, and she takes that home, and she was just exhausted. And I was like, the whole reason I quit teaching and started this business was to hopefully have the potential to have a family where we can kind of integrate both and have the flexibility. And so that's when we really started talking about it. And we're like, well, let's run some numbers and see maybe because we didn't just say, we're going to cut you out right there. I think you went part-time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right? So she went down to part-time for how much?
She had to put in her 90 days first, make sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Was it not a hard transition, but like,
well, it's always hard.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a new industry. I know with us coming into the paving world, like we didn't know anything. And obviously like new terminology. I mean, you probably know some of the terminology just because you worked in healthcare, but like what was that transition like for you? And what would you tell others going through like a similar situation, switching careers like that?
Yeah. I mean, it of course is difficult because you're going from like a job where you're like, oh, like I see so many patients, notes, billing, all the stuff, all the little side stuff you do. And then you go to like, oh, we have our own company, kind of do whatever.
Yeah.
I think that setting your own schedule was initially difficult too.
Oh my gosh, that was so difficult. I was like, what do I do? He's like,
I kept
well,
saying,
here are the
calendar,
projects. I'm like, yeah, but what do I do?
Yeah.
So I feel like that was hard.
And like working together too, how has that dynamic been? I know everyone always asks us like, what's it like working with your spouse? And we've always worked together since we started dating, so that's kind of just
normal
been our life. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been normal. But like, how was that transition for you guys? Was it difficult? Like, how do you guys separate work from home stuff? Do you bring it home? Do you like how's that dynamic?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Okay, so there's like obviously growing pains at the beginning because you're not used to.
Yeah, you're not
that
used to communicating in a business way where you're talking, goals, objectives. We need to get these things done, and it's a different way to communicate with your spouse than normally when you're just both have your own jobs and you come home and you have your personal life. So there is a transitioning period where you have to focus on that communication.
Yeah.
I mean.
But it's not for everybody, but I think it is for us. And, and it's worth the little hiccups we have at the beginning because everything's been going very well.
Yeah, I think it's funny whenever like there's some days like he'll have meetings and I was like, oh, I missed you today.
Yeah,
I'm like, I see you every day and like we work together, but
Well, that's what I went to my sister's a couple weekends ago and we had our first podcast of like just Mark and I that following week. And he's like, well, what are we gonna talk about? I'm like, this is like the longest we've been apart for probably months. I'm like, I'm with you almost 24/7. So in my eyes, for us to like come on a podcast and talk about stuff, I'm like, we're with each other for everything. Like, like we know everything that happens throughout each other's day. So when I went away that weekend, I was like, okay, I think this is an opportunity. Like we can talk about some stuff that happened while I wasn't with you. So I get it. I get it. But do you guys have like, how do you guys shut work off? Or do you? Is it, I know obviously with us, like if something presents after hours, it's nice that we're together and we can talk through it, but
or if there's just something that's like lingering or like stressing us both out, like
like we can talk through it, but obviously there's a point where you kind of have to like draw the line. Like how have you guys navigated that?
I think you're right when you say there's to set certain boundaries, and so like we have our client side where we have clients reaching out to us potentially after business hours and things, and some of them, if it's an emergency, I mean, it's health insurance. Some people, they're at the hospital at the time, they don't understand benefits, they need me to speak to them. Okay, it's kind of like the nature of the business. But that boundary has been set now for the last couple of years where I'm usually not taking client calls past a certain time in the evening, right? And so that's something I'm not doing, and that's a separation of sorts and a boundary. It's also because it's like, I mean, unless it's an emergency, you shouldn't be calling me at 9 at night, And we're in bed by 10 these days. So maybe even earlier. But then, otherwise it's...
I feel like even like later on as like the evening goes on, like if I'm just like doing something real quick or a client pops up or something
Yeah.
like that, we'll talk about it. It's not like, oh, it's
Right.
not 9 to 5. We can't
Right.
talk about it.
Right.
So I mean,
I
it's
feel
our
like-
business.
Yep.
You know, like
Yep.
when you were
It's
saying you
integrated in
guys have
your
those
life.
conversations late at night where you have to resolve something, but
Yeah.
it's not like with a direct client. Like we have those conversations all the time. She'll
Mhm.
open up her laptop at night, do some things.
Yeah.
Like, it just meshes well. And
Yeah.
I was telling her before when we were driving here, I was like, I want to note that I think that more people, because again, your point of your podcast is to inspire folks to take that leap into a new business or
Yeah.
a new career.
Yeah.
And I think to that point, it's like, don't be afraid to become self-employed just because you might think that your business and your life become one thing, because in a lot of ways you can show your kids that that's a great thing. And
Yeah.
it is a lot of ways that both personal and business mesh together. And but I think the rewards are far outweigh those cons. And if you have a healthy relationship, then
Yeah.
it balances.
Yeah. And would you agree too? I think it changes your outlook on things when you're passionate about what you're doing. I mean, I'm sure you guys are, I would imagine, very passionate about your business, and I'm sure that allows for like, okay, yes, I'm gonna put in, some extra time outside of work, and we're gonna have this conversation to resolve something, because like that's your future, and you guys take a lot of pride in your company. And I mean, we don't have our own company, but I still feel like in a way we have like our own little like portfolio of stuff. And
Yeah.
and I think that we feel as though like we have a job to provide to our client, and we're very passionate about what the services that we provide. And so I think same thing with us. If we have to do something after hours, like we're like, okay, that's fine. Like we want to put that extra work in to make sure that our clients are happy.
Yeah.
So
It's not like a chore.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
So looking at where you guys are now, you have your own business. What is something you would tell the younger version of yourselves 5 years ago? The school teacher who is like, I cannot believe like I'm doing this for this money. Like I'm capable of so much more. I'm in physical therapy school, or I'm in a therapist, and this isn't for me. Like, and look at where you sit now and how you're feeling now. What would you tell yourselves 5 years ago?
Yeah, and I can tie in the passion question too. For me, it didn't become passionate until I became tied that education.
Yeah.
I think it's so new I don't want to speak for you, but I think it's so new for you that I think your
Yeah.
current passion really is, because her passion was her patients, but now
Yeah.
it's more like supporting the business and seeing the company grow and like that.
Like as like growing our
that-
family and growing our
Yeah.
future is
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I could go
Versus-
back 5 years and tell myself what to do, probably not to quit your teaching job right after Christmas break. In the middle of a school year, when your wife just started a job and we have no savings, and burning bridges in a professional way, but
Yeah.
basically, not. I mean, we went from living on my teaching salary as her as a full-time student to then her getting the job and me being like, all right, I'm done teaching, and then having no savings at all and just going into a commission-based position.
Yeah.
So for anybody else doing that, I would say if you have the ability to continue to work and do your thing that you want it to become on the weekends,
Yeah.
or after hours, do that until it gets to a point where mathematically
Yeah.
you can make the switch from your job to your business. So
With that being said, though, do you think it lit some fire under you that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, okay, I have no other option
Yeah.
but to succeed in this situation because
that's
Brittany's depending on me. So
yeah, and some people are built like that. I'm built like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like sometimes that procrastination only goes away when you light the fire under your ass. So
Yeah.
it's like I absolutely agree. I think for me it works.
Yeah.
I just don't advise it for everybody.
yeah, that's good
Yeah.
feedback.
And then,
For you.
looking where you are now, you're growing this business, you're growing your family. Do you ever see yourself going back to an active clinician
Yeah,
role?
I want to
Whether
know
it's
that too.
part-time, full-time, per diem?
I guess we've tossed around the idea of I don't think I would ever go back like full time. Like it would be like casual, or maybe like would have my own business and just see like a few clients.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's more of like I'm passionate about this. This is not my life, but I still want to provide this service because I still I did really like what I did, but
Yeah.
it was just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Do you
Too many
feel
quotas.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a big part of it. But have you found that you are still finding that you're able to make an impact and change people's lives with the services that you're providing
Yeah,
now?
no,
Like, do you
no.
feel
Good question.
that
Yes.
fulfillment in a
Yes.
different way now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so because we're like on the phone, so it's tough to get over
It's
that
less
like
personal.
phone.
Yeah.
It's not hands-on work.
I
So I
know.
feel like it's still still have that passion about it, but it's different, I guess.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
my biggest concern. I even told Brian, CEO of the company, when we were sitting down having our interview, I said, I'm really worried. I'm used to seeing a direct impact that I'm making. Like you
Yeah.
come in with pain and like, I can change that and I
Yeah.
can see it happen. And like, I know what impact I'm making. He's like, you have to, change the way you're thinking. He's like, in our business, like we're giving people work, we're putting food on people's tables and helping
Yeah.
it out that way. He's like, you're still helping. You just have to reorient the way you're thinking about that. And I was like, you know what? That made me feel a lot better about it.
Have you felt like, or either of you really felt any like internal struggles as you transitioned out of careers that you went to school for? I mean, with PT, obviously, you said you were on a 4-year track, so 8 years of school, a lot of money, I'm sure, for both of you guys. I mean, did you guys feel guilty in a sense? Because I feel like we went through a period where we're like, okay, we felt like we had a job to, our mission was to help our patients, and we went to school to do that. And with all the time and energy and money that we put into it, and then people like a lot of it is, what are people going to say about me? And not that it matters, but I guess I can't speak for you, but I personally struggled with that a lot. Like people are going to think I'm nuts that I'm leaving PT to work at a paving company, and people still might, and that's fine. I think I've come to terms with it now, and like I'm happy with my decision. But talk us through that a little bit. Like, did you guys go through some internal struggles as you transitioned?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. And I think that because our industry that we're in, like, even though our agency, Baker Consult, we try to be the opposite of it.
Yeah.
Like, there is a stigma about insurance. And because it's confusing almost intentionally, right? It's like people don't understand, and they're just made to pick an option and hope and pray that it works when they need it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not it's a strong river to swim against. And I think that coming out of a teaching position, people looked at me like I was nuts because of that. Like insurance, they couldn't fit why at all. I could fit why, but they couldn't. And then I had my own personal guilt of just leaving the kids and the kids that I taught, and it having a direct impact on that in that sense, where I saw them every day and growing across the year. And I don't necessarily miss the politics and the parents and whatever else, but my administration was great, actually, and the kids were wonderful. So I definitely have some guilt leaving that, and but I've like you said, I've connected that education, that passion, just in a different way. Like you had a perspective shift. So, and it's different for you. I don't think we didn't talk to a single family member or friend who looked at her like she was insane.
Really?
Yeah.
And one of the very
Really?
first questions was, "Are you going to keep your PT license?"
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like one of the first questions. And I was like, I mean, yes, I'm never taking that test ever
course.
again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's
Of
what
course we're keeping
I
it.
still need. Sidebar, real quick. I still need to do my CEUs from last year
For Florida.
for Florida.
Oh, you're keeping Florida. Oh, I got rid of Florida.
Well, because I didn't know if I had to retake the test for Florida if we ever move back to Florida, and God forbid I want to be a PT there.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
that's true.
I don't know.
I burned bridges with Florida.
Yeah. But I have to do the CEUs. I think I have to pay a fee, but I can do them until September. So, because I thought it was still online. I did the CEUs, but I did them all online. But you still have to do the in-person ones,
Oh,
or
Florida's
it's
still,
back
like,
to doing in
behind on that.
person.
Publicly announced you're not legit in Florida. Way to go.
Well, I haven't been
not practicing.
practicing.
It's okay.
Yeah, I
never
mean,
know.
I got it approved by the board. It's okay. Like, I have a couple extra months. It's okay. But yeah. So talk about what you went through then with your family and
Again, I'm
asking-
sure you guys got that question, like, are you going to keep your PT license?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think, after a duration of time, if I haven't gone back, I'm going to let it go. But like, no one's ever going to take that test ever again.
Yeah.
So,
Well, our just driving force, it's really in our lives is our son. And
Yeah.
That's once he's in school, or it's like she has other plans, and it might be PT again. But
Yeah.
a lot of people couldn't see that initially.
yeah,
Right.
nobody could see why I would put in 8 years and then say, not for me.
Yeah.
So
We can always go back.
Yeah, it's like even
It's
if 2 or
PT,
3
you can
years.
always
Yeah.
go
That's
back.
just
We can always go back. There's some companies going to need help. I mean, I feel like, especially in
Absolutely.
Pittsburgh right now, I know when you left, there were
Lots
a
of
ton of
openings.
openings at NovaCare, and
Yeah.
I think if we really wanted to, we would be able to find something. So
Yeah.
And you can re-enter on your own terms at that point.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I was telling her. Like,
Yeah, I don't ever
it's in a better position.
see myself 40, 50 hours in the clinic ever again.
I
I
know.
would love to like do some consulting work or
Mhm.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
just
what
the
I mean,
perfect
Yes.
client or something like that where it's,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I would love to still do that, but I don't ever see myself going back in and doing that again.
I want to ask one more question. I don't know if you have any more, but actually I have two. So your parents were, your mom
Mhm.
and dad were both the CEOs of the Pittsburgh Zoo, correct? Mom?
They were
Oh.
CEOs of different organizations. My mom was the Pittsburgh Zoo. My dad was National Aviary.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So talk us through growing up with your parents having such a big role at the Pittsburgh Zoo and like how you think that shaped like how you handle your agency today.
Yeah, well, my parents definitely displayed like a power for independence and just like getting things done, even though life is always happening. Because I mean, I'm one of 7,
Mhm.
and both my parents worked full time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, and we did have a babysitter, but at the same time, you know, they were always showing us through their actions that you can go and do and whatever it is that you want to do,
Mhm.
as long as you put in the work to do that.
Yeah.
And so almost every summer, at least as a kid, before I was old enough to start working, I would be at the zoo in my mom's office during the day while she was there, and seeing her like run meetings and talk to people and just kind of like direct the whole operation at
Yeah.
the zoo. I think even though I didn't know it at the time, like it definitely has influence on the way that I look at challenges and tasks and things with my business, where I'm like, all right, it's not something that I am great at. It's not something that I even want to necessarily do right now,
Mhm.
but it needs to be done. So let's do it.
Yeah.
And I think my parents, if anything, instilled that
That's awesome.
through their positions for sure.
That's awesome.
Did you ever meet Ron McGill as a kid growing up? Did he ever come to Pittsburgh?
No.
Yeah, he runs Zoo Miami, but he's like always on national TV for zoos across the country and
I'm
doing
sure
stuff.
my mom has met him.
Yeah, I'm sure she knows him.
Yeah.
Fun fact, did you know they got married at the zoo?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Kid.
We
Very
had
awesome.
Lewis the giraffe in the background. It was great.
So cool.
You walk
Yeah.
the bridesmaids down the aisle, I guess, or the aisle.
Yeah.
The path.
That's awesome.
Paige and
though.
Britt had the perks of going to the zoo every single year until 7th grade.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Nice.
So
Very cool.
Awesome. Very nice.
yeah.
I have one more question. If
Go for it.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off.
Nope.
So I know that you have run some marathons, correct?
Yes, not a full.
Not a full? I
Several
thought-
halves.
Several halves.
Okay. Have you run any halves or fulls?
No, I run from fires, bears,
Okay.
that type of thing. Other
Yeah,
than that,
okay.
I'm hiking.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
that's great
yeah.
though. Now, do you have any plans for any upcoming races or anything?
So I just ran in January.
Okay. Where did you run?
Disneyland.
Okay. Very
Um,
nice.
This is my first time in California.
Yes.
I went to
Wow.
support.
Yes, he went to he went to support.
Got a
He-
good 25 miles in though across the weekend, just walking steps.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So that's wild.
Him and my brother were like running all over the place to see. It was my good friend in PT school and I
Yeah.
ran together. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was your question about the marathons? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just if you guys had, because I wasn't sure if you ran or not. No. So do you have any plans to run any upcoming, or you're
No.
taking a break for a while?
I guess I wanted like I'm postpartum and like I did a half
Yeah,
marathon.
that's amazing.
And I'm like, I feel so weak. I'm like,
oh, but you did it.
I
That's
know. I
amazing.
was
You
like,
should be
I'd
so
like to
proud
get
of
like
yourself.
strong again, and then like maybe into like I like yoga, but like
Yeah.
get into more in that. And I was like, but then like my good friend I ran with, she's like, well, let's get coast to coast and like let's go to Disney World in November and let's run. And
She
I'm
knows
like,
how to tempt Brittany.
Tell
She
her to come to
knows.
Pittsburgh in May,
Yeah.
and you guys
So-
can run with us.
Yeah.
We're running.
And Britt looked directly at me before the Disney run and was like, after this run, if Emily or if I decide to run again, tell me I'm not allowed.
I was like, I'm gonna come
Remind
off
me
the
of this
runner
moment.
high.
Remind me
and
of this
like,
moment. Yeah, she'd be like, I'll be on my runner's high. I want to do it again. I'll feel so no, I'm not. I'm like,
That's so
okay.
funny.
all right.
That's
So
so
I don't think so.
Aw.
You
I'm
guys have
sure.
one coming up in May?
Yeah, we're gonna do the Pittsburgh full.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're
Have you done them before?
no. He hasn't done a half or a full.
Mm.
I've
and you're
done-
just like, let's not even ease
Well, no, I
into
mean,
it.
Bless
I
you, Mark.
originally wanted to do the half, and I was like, I'll run the half, and then I
like
started
we'll
reading.
split ways.
Well, I
and-
started reading like David Goggins books and stuff, and I was
Oh.
like, and he like kind of trashes people who
That'll
like,
do
well,
it.
no, he doesn't trash him, but he's like, why are you training for a half and just do a full? And then talking to her, and she done too. And then at New Year's, I was like, we were talking about our goals, and I said I chickened out last year and didn't do it, like didn't run the half. And I was like, this year, I was like, barring any kind of injury, I'm like, I'm gonna run the half. And she's like, let's run the full. And I was like,
why not?
all right. But I mean, the last back-to-back weekends, I've run like done long runs of like 13 and 14 miles.
Yeah.
Oh, you're fine.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
So you're training, then that's good.
Yeah, I'm taking it very, very seriously.
That's
So,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, because have you run the Pittsburgh one at all?
yeah.
Okay, so
Mhm.
you know, I mean, you know the vibe of the city that day. It is like magical.
Yes.
It is so fun.
It is.
But I know the previous times that I ran the Pittsburgh half, I didn't participate in any of like the trainings or anything in the
Mhm.
city. I don't know if you did, but I went to my first one last weekend with Laura, and it was amazing. So we ran with the City of Bridges Run Club, and it's like an organized thing. So they had, a group with, I think, 7 miles, a group that did 10 miles, a group that did 14 miles, and they had pacers for each. So you could really stick with a group of people and like have a mapped out run. And it definitely was, it's nice to talk. I mean, obviously when you're running for 2 hours, it kind of gets boring,
gets a
even if
little
you have
boring.
a nice, some nice scenery to look
Yeah.
at. But I don't know. It was nice just chatting with people and getting a new view of the city. And I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think you're going to come with me this weekend.
Yep.
Maybe?
I think so.
I'm surrounded by runners.
I was
Yeah.
like, so then
I'm
Paige's
not
gonna be
a
like,
runner.
so just like,
Yeah, that's what, yeah. I mean, I am all for you coming on the crew with us. I would be more than happy to
In
run
this
with you.
this coming May.
Yeah.
like in a couple months.
I mean, I'm
We
going to
have-
be the voice of reason.
We have, I mean, I'm not going to put you on spot on the air, but
No,
if you
no.
want to, that would be great. We have a crew of people going.
Cool.
We're all running for cystic fibrosis because of Laura's
That's nice.
niece.
Oh,
We're
cool.
going to support cystic fibrosis to support her and the rest of the organization. And we have some stuff going on with we're I think hosting. Or I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it. I don't know. That stuff is set in stone. Maybe I'll pump the brakes. But we're doing some fun stuff to
That's
get
awesome.
involved. But yeah, it should be fun if you decide you want to join up with us and run. If you're dying to run 13 miles.
yeah,
so-
right.
But
Yeah.
good
Well,
stuff.
We just want to take the time and say thank you very much for joining us today. I know
Yeah.
you guys are super busy, but we really appreciate you coming down and telling your story and sharing your story, and hopefully it reaches somebody who's ready to make a change and become more fulfilled and happy in their lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys
it.
so
Yeah,
much.
thanks for having us. Yeah.